Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session on AI agent architecture, pitfalls, and real-world learnings. You're in for a treat because we have a fantastic set of panelists here. Now, before we get into the panel and the discussion, we are at an inflection point in enterprise AI adoption. So, over the past year, organizations have shifted from sort of co-pilots to now fully agentic workflows, systems that can reason, plan, and sort of act on your business systems. Now, these agents are sort of not just answering these questions like assistants or co-pilots, they're kind of orchestrating fully autonomously and sometimes bringing human in the loop. IDC even predicts there's 1.3 billion agents that will be in operation by 2028. Now, with all this sort of power comes complexity. That's where our panelists come in today. Today, we will unpack what it takes to scale AI agents responsibly. You will learn about architectures, model choices, governance, and trust. So we have panelists from technology leaders from Wolters Kluwer, Replit, and AT&T. You might be wondering, there are 3 different organizations in different domains at different scale, but they're all united by sort of turning Gen AI into measurable business outcomes. So that's really the common theme here. So without further ado, let's kind of get into introducing our fantastic panelists here. So with that, we have Louis. So we'll go around and tell us who you are and what your AI agent does in a couple of sentences.
Yes. Hello, my name is Héctor Chávez. I'm the CTO of Replit. I've been with the company for 5 years. And Replit's AI agent is an agent that builds applications for you or your users. And not only does it build web applications, but it also builds agents and workflows and orchestrations of other agents.
Great. Adam?
So I'm Adam Orentlicher, and I lead the Tax and Accounting North America engineering team for Wolters Kluwer. So just a little bit of background on Wolters Kluwer, because many of you probably haven't heard about it. We essentially serve professionals. So if you work with professionals in your day-to-day lives, that's who we serve. So that could be a clinician, that could be a tax and accountant professional, that could be a lawyer. So we serve professionals. I lead the Tax and Accounting North America engineering team. The agent that I'm going to talk about today in one sentence per your ask, Naga, it's an agent that helps drive to a zero-touch tax return.
Fantastic. Zero-touch tax return. That's great. Mark?
Hi, Mark Austin. I'm with AT&T. I have the data science and automation team, and we help everybody in AT&T. So we have many agents. So we have the Ask ATT platform, and our agent portion of it, we call it Ask ATT Workflows. So many different agents there. We'll summarize a little bit as we go, but that's where we're at.
That's great. Fantastic to have you all. So we'll start with Louis, double-clicking a little bit into sort of how you think about Gen AI. Now, vibe coding as a term started only in February this year.
Yes.
I believe. But you launched your agent last year. And you were telling me that millions of apps have been built on it.
Hundreds of millions, yes.
Hundreds of millions. But you also call yourself an enterprise vibe coding company. I thought vibe coding is only for fun projects. So tell us about your vision and how you think enterprises will adopt vibe coding.
Yes. So turns out that within a company, about 20% of your organization, probably your engineering team, is the amount of people that are building your software, your internal tools, your knowledge base. But we believe that everybody can build software, not just the engineers. So that means that we want HR, we want finance, we want operations, we want product and design, all to build applications so that the power to build internal tools and solutions within your company doesn't fall 100% on the engineering team. So this means that we can probably help you solve problems without going and acquiring expensive software as a service. We can help your product people be able to validate ideas without having to wait until there's availability in the engineering team. We can help you take proof of concepts that would otherwise take quarters to be able to realize them and embed them in a matter of weeks and or days. So next slide, please. We have a 75% of your workforce are probably going to be knowledge workers. They are domain experts in whatever they do. And only 25% are software developers. We want 100% of your company to be able to go and do software and make your whole company operate at a much faster cadence.
That's fantastic. leveraging AI to sort of democratize software development. Thank you, Louis. Now, Adam, you've been at Wolters Kluwer for 5+ years. I read an MIT case study that documented your digital transformation for the last 2 decades from publishing company to an expert solutions provider. And I believe data and AI were sort of key to that transformation. So can you share a little bit about how AI plays a key role in sort of Wolters Kluwer solutions and give us an example?
Absolutely, Naga. I'll give you a couple of examples. So Wolters Kluwer, we're a company where we have this notion of expert AI. So it's AI that's infused with professional expertise to improve the professionals' lives, period. Driving to improve customer satisfaction, whatever the customer is. So we have a number of solutions that have been built with expert AI in mind in Wolters Kluwer. One of them is called Up to Date with Expert AI. What that does is it delivers clinical intelligence to a clinician at the point of care, because the clinician has to make life or death decisions at the point of care on how to deliver said care. So in the case of expert AI for that solution, we've trained the clinical intelligence based on thousands of clinicians and their guidance that is regularly evaluated against clinical norms. In the tax space, we have what you see here, CCH Access Scan with Expert AI. The act of a professional preparing a tax return today is very laborious, right? For those of you in the United States who you work with the CPA, you'll know there's a lot of paper that you have to shuffle and share with your tax professional. What CCH Access Scan is really about is it is enabling the professional to take that paper and ingest it into the tax return, flow it all the way through end to end, from the ingestion of client tax documents all the way through the prepare and review of the tax return in a zero-touch format. The goal of this is really to take a very large percentage of hours out of the tax prep process, allowing the tax professional to focus on higher value tasks like advisory.
That's fantastic. I'm all for reducing the amount of time we spend on filing taxes. So that's great. Fantastic. So with that, Mark, AT&T operates at a scale that a few can match, serving over 100 million customers, wireless subscribers, and processing, I believe, 800 petabytes of data per day. Now, tell us how you introduce Gen AI into your operations while operating this mission-critical network and communications network at scale.
Yeah. Good. So, so we've been doing this pre-Copilot. Okay, we've been integrating Copilot now. As I mentioned, we have Ask AT&T as our general Gen AI platform at AT&T. Serves all of our employees, 100,000 plus employees. As of yesterday, I update that number on the bottom left there. It's over 10 billion tokens a day, or words per day, that are passing through in all the use cases. And we have 91 use cases in production that we're doing there. Now, if you're processing all that stuff, you have to do it efficiently as well. So the big use cases that are doing lots of tokens, whether it's summarizing care calls or contracts and stuff, we fine-tune the models. Okay, so when we do that, we take out 90% of the cost that you see there as well. And we also are big fans of coding, having AI help us with coding. Those are some early numbers there, 20% coding efficiency gain, 30% completions there. And then one other thing is that, one of the use cases, it's asking questions of documents, but it's also asking questions of data. We have a tremendous amount of data that we need to kind of get insights from, and helping AI help us with that. So no longer a need to always go to a data analyst to write SQL code. We have Ask Data, which does text to SQL, and we've been kind of perfecting that. We kind of benchmark ourselves against some of the big competitions in the world. So I think we're number 1 8 times across those things, up against like Google and Alibaba and others that benchmark themselves there as well. But the important thing that their CFO always looks for is, okay, what does it mean? So as of last year, we're 2x ROI free cash flow as well. Fantastic. On our use cases.
That's great. Thank you, Mark. Now, we'll kind of talk a little bit about the journey to going to that scale. Mark, I'll start with you. You talked about how to unearth these business process workflows. Building agents is all about understanding those business process workflows so that you can automate them and have sort of the human in the loop process and everything. So you shared a little bit about how during that process you also unearthed you might have to do data modernization.
Yeah.
So can you talk to that process a little bit more on how you sort of uncovered these workflows?
Yeah, so a little bit of practicality, right? So if you're talking about workflows and automating processes, you invariably will find that not everything is documented, right? So then you have to kind of understand, well, what do you all do? You know, where is the data at? Is in it, you know, you'll find sometimes it's in Excel and people are handing off Excel. You know, sometimes it's in a place that's really not kind of our standard. We want it over in, you know, Snowflake or Databricks or whatever.
Paper.
Paper. Okay. Okay, so you basically have these interviews, right? So it's like, what is this thing there? Now, what we're finding is that maybe we can even use AI to help us with the interviews, right? If you can kind of have them describe it and show it, right? You can also have AI kind of understand what's happening there. That helps tremendously. But you really can't unlock the agents unless the data is in a place that you can trust. It's the single value of truth. It's not the third copy that's, you know, this guy's version of the truth. Okay, so you got to get that there. So what we do is we kind of talk through that process and then we say, okay, we have to do a data modernization thing here. Sometimes to even get started, okay? So it's a little bit of backup there. Some places are great. We have all the data there and we can kind of run fast, but those are some of the practicalities that we're finding.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic insight. You know, as you get into the scaling part of it, you got to unearth some of these and through interviews, and you find these silos and Excels and SQL databases hiding under somebody's desk. Adam, you know, you operate in sort of this highly precise environment with expert AI, with clinicians and tax preparations. So tell us how you sort of operationalize these workflows. What was your process?
So we operate in an environment where professional judgment is fundamental, where there is liability or people's lives on the line based on a decision that is made. So the way that we design our solutions, our AI solutions, is all based on human in the loop, trained by experts, okay? Because you have to, I'll start with the latter, trained by experts. There's a lot of content that's out there today in the public sphere. But some of that is real, some of that is fake, some of that is incorrect, whatever it might be. The reality is we have experts that come in. They are actually experts in their domain. That could be a physician, that could be a pharmacist, that could be a tax professional. They are curating the content, and then they are consuming that. They are actually training and or providing context to our AI solutions. But then the most important part of it is we present that information to a human for the human to make a decision. So it's autonomous workflows with a degree of semi-autonomy built into it to allow the humans to make that professional judgment. Because if you live in the United States, you unlikely want a tax return to be completely filed all the way from initial document ingestion all the way to the filing without any human review. That is a very difficult scenario. Same thing with, you know, you're in a hospital and you're getting medical care. Do you want the AI to make that decision on its own without having a medical professional clinician actually review it?
That's great. I mean, the definition of frontier firm talk about how humans and agents are working together. So exactly what you're describing. Thank you. Louis, can you talk to us a little bit about how some enterprises are sort of using Replit to reimagine their business processes or workflows?
Yes. So we work together with a lot of companies, and one of the most successful ways in which companies have used Replit is, as I mentioned before, if you have an idea, if you're a product manager or a designer and have an idea and want to see it realized, sometimes you need to wait for somebody to help you with that. So one of the things that works best is if you can go to Replit, you can give it some direction, like I need to prototype this one intervention. Let's say I want to see if it's better for the website to be laid out in this particular fashion, or if you have a little AI agent at the bottom, or if you know, any of the wildest ideas you can think of. And then you can riff on those ideas with Replit. And then instead of going to a meeting to like your CEO or your VP and presenting just a slideshow that's static that you cannot interact with, or a little bit better, a Figma that you can click on it and interact a little bit more. If you go to that meeting with a fully realized demo, that is the kind of things that tends to win arguments and tends to like, oh, okay, this is a good direction. Can you please change this? And with Replit, while you're in the meeting, you can still make changes to your idea and have immediate feedback. So that is one thing that is really moving the needle in some companies. And one important thing, some people might think that this is kind of sidestepping IT or creating the shadow IT. That is not really the case with Replit, because we're trying to work together with IT. We are allowing IT teams to bring all their RBAC, all their SSO, all their SCIM and permissioning to Replit, so that we also build things with security in mind. We build things in a way that is compliant to the organization data governance. And so everybody has the peace of mind that Replit is not going to go
comfort that it's within
yes,
the governance and security boundaries.
Yes, exactly.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the old adage, picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yep.
Now you're saying a prototype or a working prototype is worth
that,
even
I
better.
I heard that that's mandated in meetings. With
There are some companies that have adopted Replit in such a way that now the CEO tells everybody in the company, hey, I do not want to see in a single slide. I want prototypes.
Yeah, demos.
Demos.
Demos
all
win
demos.
arguments.
It
when
was an
failed.
argument.
And then when
Great,
someone
that's a good
questions it, iterate on it
tagline.
quickly
Yep.
during the meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now let's switch gears. I'm sure our audience is kind of curious about how you went about implementing this and what was some of the architectural decisions you had to make to building these AI agents. So Louis, we'll start with you. If you could talk us through sort of the architecture of your agent, the Replit agent, and how you sort of, what were some of the design trade-offs?
Yep. So as I mentioned before, we have the Replit agent, but the Replit agent also builds agents of its own. So when a user goes to Replit and asks, hey, I want this particular agent that does this workflows and is able to interact with these systems and get read your calendar invites and go and fetch data from your Salesforce instance and mix it all together and be able to do autonomous system workflows, then we deploy them on Azure if you're a Microsoft customer. So we have a sort of control plane that's running in the periphery of Azure, and we have embedded security everywhere. From the point of ingress, we create a TLS certificate for you, so all the communications you can be assured that it's encrypted end to end. We store all the secrets in Azure Key Vault. Then we deploy your artifacts, your containers, into a single tenant subscription that only your company will be running workflows in. We use Azure Container Applications to actually run your workflow and your agent. And also, whenever your agent needs to communicate with any AI or inference, we use Azure OpenAI so that everything is in-house. Everything is almost no data is leaving the Microsoft ecosystem. So that way you can have assurances that your data governance is going to be fully adhered. We're also working towards being able to deploy this into your own subscription, but that's still coming later. Now, we have decided on this particular model because it gives our users and also us the guarantees that your execution context is not going to be shared with anybody else, and that way you don't need to worry about like data governance leaks or other kind of vulnerabilities like that.
That's great. A centralized control plane, then the data plane is secure in the customer's subscription. Fantastic. So Adam, we'll go to sort of how you architected CCH Axcess and tell us a little bit about the...
Absolutely. So CCH Axcess is 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗧's platform for tax audit and advisory professionals, right? So it is the platform that facilitates the workflow for the professionals, whether they're preparing a tax return / filing a tax return, doing an audit, for example, an external audit, or providing advice to a customer. So CCH Axcess is an Azure-based stack. It's all based on Microsoft Azure services. The number one mission that the engineering and the operations teams have with Axcess is resiliency, 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 resiliency. Because the reality is, if you think about April 15th, we cannot go down. It must be always on. So resiliency, resiliency. So with that, to that end, we use a variety of Microsoft Azure services underneath. Underpinning this predominantly now, we've moved towards a Kubernetes-based architecture. And the reason that we've moved to more of an AKS-based architecture, much easier to do horizontal, vertical scale. You can also do event-based scaling depending on the specific component, but as well to that, it allows agility from an engineering perspective to frankly do the work, to develop the AI-centric app and rapidly iterate on it. So the way that CCH Access Scan is built, which is the solution that's driving to the zero-touch tax return, it's based on AKS, it's using durable workflow technology, and then what we've created is a model router-like approach, not as advanced as your model router, but what it uses is a variety of different AI-based services underneath the covers, and the top two that we use for Access Scan is Azure AI Document Intelligence and Azure AI Content Understanding. If you think of why that's important and why this matters, think of retrieving a K1 document from a client or a 1099 or a W-2, and the end result of that being processing in a tax return. So you have to break apart the document that's being received into different chunks, different sections. Some of it is unstructured, some of it is in table-based form, and then you have to flow it into the right areas of the return to truly give the professionals time back.
That makes sense. Yeah, picking the right model for the right job.
Yep.
We'll switch to Mark here. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you architected sort of your Gen AI platform? Talked about a variety of use cases. So if you could walk us through that.
Yeah, so I think you'll see a lot of similar components as to my colleagues here. You know, simply speaking, we have a web interface, and then the main thing is you need to teach the AI about a variety of things. You need to teach it about documents, and you need to teach it about data. Of course, we use Azure AI Search for our documents. Resiliency is huge. You know, one thing that I haven't seen yet in Azure AI Search, but we'd like to get data duplication, right? So the copying the the vector store over would be super useful, because we're loading stuff all the time. In customer care, we load every 15 minutes on new documents there. Contracts we're loading millions of things, often as well. But the agents are all kind of governed. I like some of the stuff I see with Agent 365, maybe help us with some more governance there. Everything is on behalf of, right? So when you're kind of accessing data, it's on behalf of a token that gets passed there. And the data can be in different places and different, different SQL stores that we have as well. But I would say, resiliency, the Kubernetes is super useful, helping us scale there. I think some of the stuff that I've seen and maybe even hosting agents in the new framework that you have would be quite useful. Maybe I don't even need to manage the Kubernetes cluster. You can kind of manage that on behalf as well. But, and then the other thing is that you see the Azure OpenAI, LLM there as well. That's super important. That gives us the kind of private, secure thing. The data doesn't leak out there. We also have, after the fine tuning, you help us with hosting stuff too, right? So we have multiple LLMs and we kind of route appropriately based on those as well. But it's kind of, across the board, we're constantly looking for resiliency opportunities, but there's a lot you've helped us with so far.
Fantastic. I mean, a scalable foundation as you go from 90 use cases to several hundred, sounds like. With that, I want to double click on a little bit more on some of the choices, starting with sort of models, right? It feels like new AI models are launching every week, every day. We announced, the availability of Anthropic's Claude models on Microsoft Foundry this week. Maybe we'll start with Louis. How did you sort of go about deciding which model to use for your use case? And tell us a little bit about that, the model choice.
Yeah, so turns out we use almost every model. And the reason for this is like we have, again, several hundreds of use cases. And depending on the use case, some models perform better than others. So we don't use a single model for everything, which makes sense. Some models excel at some things, some models are faster, some models are cheaper. So depending on what exactly we're trying to do and how we're trying to help our users is the model we choose. And of course, this doesn't come for free. It's not like one engineer like clicking on things. We do have a suite of evals that span the gamut from very, very simple, very quick, very are things broken kind of evals that run during CI. But then there are way more deep, more several minutes, several steps, and like a large workflow to make sure that everything is working together. Because one of the things that we've seen is sometimes one of the models in one use case does one little mistake, but you don't really see the mistake until like several tens of or hundreds of steps later at a different model that like, oh wait, there's a bug here. So it is use the best tool for the job. Is our main motto.
And evals are key to that in sort of, and if you look at Microsoft Foundry, we kind of give you leaderboards and evals to compare the models and so on. Mark, I want to come to you, and you talked about 3 vectors in choosing a model between accuracy, latency, and cost. Tell us a little bit more on how you sort of operationalize that.
Yeah. I think the way we think about it is whenever we're doing a new use case, we don't worry too much about the cost. We try to get it working first. So we'll take the basic frontier and we say, okay, can I get this thing to actually work? Then after we get it working, we start thinking of, okay, what is this going to scale to? If it looks like it's going to be really big, then we start worrying about the 3 things you talked about: cost, latency, and accuracy. And the other way to think of it is good, fast, and cheap. Now, if you think about good, fast, and cheap, you typically say, hey, you can choose 2 out of the 3, but you can't get all 3. The nice thing, if you fine-tune a small language model, you can get good, fast, and cheap. It's amazing. We just did, we were working on one, it's a leaderboard on how do you kind of predict what the root cause is for low throughput in telecom, in wireless. And we trained a Gemma 4 billion model that outperformed GPT-5, Claude 4.5 Sonnet, and Grok 4, okay? At 4 billion parameters, so it's definitely possible. You can actually get all 3 if you do it right, but start with get it working first, and then kind of optimize it after the fact is what we do.
That's great advice. First, get the feature functionality working well, get your user feedback and all of that, and then the optimization comes later. Adam, you picked a purpose-built model like Azure AI Content Understanding, which uses an LLM underneath and document intelligence versus a GPT-based model for your CCH access scan workflow. So tell us why you went that route.
So similar to my colleagues Louis and Mark here, we started with the outcome in mind, right? We broke down the tax professional's workflow, and then we decided at specific decision points of the workflow, we needed to insert a specific technology pattern. The reason that we landed on content understanding, Microsoft AI content understanding and document intelligence is because it brings more than just the developer experience to bear. So as part of our workflow, we talk about expert-infused content, right? The expertise is infused in the solution. So the tools to allow a citizen developer or a business analyst to label, really critical, right? Because this is a CPA that's noting, for example, where noting on a tax document where it should flow next in the workflow, right? There are other examples where there's other types of there's handwritten information within documents. So we had to look at this. We had to look at a purpose-built solution that is able to extract specific types of entities and enable both the training at scale and the resiliency, availability, security at scale that's demanded for tax prep use cases.
Right, and you were sharing with me how you have a variety of documents in terms of structures. Some could be handwritten, and so you need to sort of have.
Yeah, like if anyone in the U.S. gets a K1 as part of a partnership investment, more or less, when you get a K1 document, you'll notice that there are footnotes and statement pages that are very challenging to parse. And that's what we're developing the solution for, to read that unstructured content and flow it into the right areas of the tax return that are curated by tax professionals.
Fantastic. Now, let's switching gears, sort of talking about how AI is changing application development in your organization. Testing these agents, these are non-deterministic, right? It becomes a bit interesting, evals. There is a lot of techniques like using LLM as a judge and so on. Maybe, Louis, can you talk to how you ensure your agents are operating with a high level of accuracy? Because you're operating at scale, talked about millions of apps being built. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it turns out there's a lot of engineering that happens around the agent. So it's not just that we're optimizing for the actual agent, but also all the systems around it. So we have several layers of sandboxing, we have several layers of protection, and also while the agent is developing code, there's a coordination with multiple agents. We have something that's called the architect agent that kind of does code review and sees whether things are still on rails, and if things are starting to get a little bit off the rails, it self-corrects. So that helps the agent be cohesive and coherent along a long trajectory. That's like layer number one. And then layer number two. There are a few tools that we know have some kind of problems. So we've also inserted mechanisms so that those tools can flag to the agent, hey, like this combination of parameters is not really safe. There's some problems with this. Please try a different strategy, or use one of the more purpose-built tools for this particular thing that already has like a much better structure and has fewer chances of errors. Then we also have, because we eventually run code and, well, develop and run code, we also have a system-level sandbox to make sure that things are not, there are no unsafe operations on the systems level. Finally, at the application level, we also have this concept of development and production separation. So while the agent is developing the code, we have a development-only instance of the database, for example. And this database is completely separate from the production database. So the agent has the ability to go and insert records, delete records, and things like that, because it knows that it will not affect the production database. Therefore, your production data will be safe and secure. So it is really a combination of all of these mechanisms and techniques to make sure that at the end of the day, the Replit agent will produce correct code.
So having like a dev staging and production, yes. It's a classic sort of SDLC approach. Yep. So you're using that. By the way, it was fascinating. I was trying Replit to see some of the code review agent and the architect agent going back and forth saying, oh yeah, sorry, I got it wrong. So let me go back and fix it. So it was fun to watch the agent sort of doing the work while I was just sipping a cup of coffee. Mark, tell us how you approach sort of, how AI is changing application development. You talked about a lot of coding agents being used within AT&T.
Yeah, I think, as Louis, I think we have the same vision as Louis and Replit, is we see that everybody should be able to do it. Everybody should be able to code, right? And I almost think of, if you think of there's three roles that are kind of coming together. Designers, kind of what is the Figma layout of the thing? The product owner kind of knows what I want to build, and then the initial developer, right? And with some of these tools, I call it the 2-in-a-box or 3-in-a-box person. They can actually do all three, right? And it's amazing what you could do, because then there's no handoffs. There's no translation of, hey, I did something, maybe I'll talk to the product owner. You're all one, right? You can literally sit there and develop those things. So those things are huge. The other thing that I think that we're finding is, with agents, it's all about giving it the right context. The one thing that if you have this 2 or 3 in the box is you have somebody over here that goes to production. They're a little bit outside the loop if they're not kind of there. How do I give it the right context so that that person that takes it to production, if you don't have the full Replit solution, is going to be somewhat happy with it, right? So you define your standards. You define what does it mean to do a backend and use a fast API? What does a front end do? I always want to React. You define your entire standards. What is your brand? Put that in there. Build all that stuff in. That's context for the agents. Then you have better success. So that's kind of what we're doing at AT&T.
Fantastic. Context is super important. Adam, anything you would add here in terms of how AI is changing application development for you?
I would say AI is very much so changing application development, because gone are the days where it's a waterfall model or 9 months to deliver software. The model is much more like what Louis said: rapid research, prototype, development, delivery. Very rapid, very short cycles, rapid feature delivery and production. That is the model that we're in right now. And we have this notion in Wolters Kluwer of built-in, not bolted-on AI. And the reason we have this notion is because we are implementing those rapid cycles in the context of our users' workflows, so the users just see it as magic and a time savings for them, more or less, but with allowing them to make decisions at key decision points of the workflow.
Makes sense. That's great. Switching gears to sort of a little bit on the scaling piece, you touched upon it earlier. Maybe, Louis, you can talk about the popularity of Replit. I'm sure you're onboarding a lot of users. How are you handling the scaling challenge And I'm sure you have like sort of peaks and valleys in usage. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, so all of Replit has been built with scale in mind. Before we were an AI first company, we used to be an online IDE. And by then we were already having like hundreds of millions of applications hosted on Replit. So from the very beginning, we have introduced this concept of failure domains. So from the reliability point of view, we have architected the system in a way that if there's any failure in one system, that failure doesn't corrupt any other failure domains, we call them. That's like an isolation box. So that means that worst case scenario, things will fail in a contained fashion. So that's from the individual systems perspective. Then we also have leveraged Kubernetes and this kind of technologies that always allow you to define individual units of work that can scale horizontally. So that helps us a lot. And we've also chosen technologies that don't require us to manually be scaling vertically. Like if you have a big database, you need to take a little bit of a downtime if you want to add more resources to it. So that's the step number one, the systems design. And then we're also working on, whenever we deploy Replit at companies, we also give the agent the same principles to design. So by default, every single application that users build at Replit are going to be horizontally scalable. We've imbued the agent with this best practices in engineering, so that their applications are by default scalable, deployed in Kubernetes, architected to scale. All the databases can scale up and down to zero or whatever needed. And we basically build a system so that your users or our users don't have to worry about all the engineering best practices that go into building high-scale services.
That makes sense. Microservices plus sort of architecting for scale, serverless, and all of those principles. Adam, you mentioned, of course, tax season can be very spiky. I'm sure your AI agent workflow follows a similar pattern. How did you architect to handle that scale?
So very similar to Louis. Like we have fault domains, we have component level active-active, we have disaster recovery, multi-region within Azure. There's a lot that we have implemented. We've implemented full observability through our stack, for example, using 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀𝗃. The list goes on and on and on. What I will add on top of what Louis said, though, that I think is important from a resiliency perspective, we try to architect with autoscale in mind. That's number one. But number two, we've driven a lot of investment and we've made a lot of investment in our business on enabling just-in-time, just-enough access controls to mitigate, per se, the fat finger syndrome that occurs when operating a production environment and driving to basically near 100% infrastructure as code, policy as code, operational readiness, so we don't have issues in production or when we're deploying to production.
Makes sense. And Mark, anything to add there?
Yeah, I would just say, totally agree with my colleagues here. I would just say scaling is hard when you're thinking of the GPUs, though.
Very.
And I think it's a little bit of philosophy is like, well, you don't need to use the real-time API. Why don't you consider that as batch, right? If you're going to do a large extraction job, you're going to do a large summarization, or you do training, let's kind of schedule that and let's kind of get that there. So it's a little bit of philosophy. I think there's a little bit of model failover, which is important too. Yeah. The endpoints are not always there. So you need to kind of figure out what is the fallback, and then you need to make sure the eval is going to be still okay. So it's just a lot to think about. I think we're all learning of GPU scaling, and even in the cloud, it's like these GPUs have to talk to each other. Do you have the NV links in place there, right? So there's just a lot to go about in the whole scaling. I think it's kind of a whole session in itself, I would think.
It is.
Fantastic. We will quickly switch to governance, right, which is a very top-of-mind topic, as you talked about Agent 365, Foundry control plane, and all of those give you some of the aspects. So Mark, you operate sort of in a regulated industry with mission-critical availability requirements. Tell us how you sort of operationalize governance at scale.
Yeah, I would say I think it's whether you're a regulator or not, you gotta kind of govern the agents, right? So it's a lot to think about. I think when our chief security officer first looked at it, it was 10 pages of things he had to check off, right? What are these agents doing? What are they accessing? Where are they going, right? And it's almost like you have low risk, medium risk, and high risk, right? And it's like a high risk one would be, hey, I have access, I gave this tool access to internal data. It also has a tool to access the web, and how are you gonna put human, you gotta require human in the loop and make sure it's actually doing it right. So we literally take those requirements and we try to build as much into the platform, or we try to leverage Agent 365 or those things to kind of get all that stuff, because you don't want to have everything as a one-off, right? So the most important thing is you try to build as much you can as a platform to protect everybody, and do it there. And then, if you can get into the pro code is the most wide open, is the one you have to be concerned the most. But if you can put some stuff over in a standardized, no code or low code, then you control a lot more things and let those things go. It's kind of what we do.
Makes sense. Adam, you're also operating in a highly regulated financial industry. How do you enforce data residency and compliance while also enabling sort of product intelligence?
So that's one of the benefits of the Azure stack, per se, that you have full control over residency as well as compliance in that vein. What I will say is, though, we also, when it comes to AI governance, there's an enormous amount of investment that goes into automated evaluation frameworks and the experts curating the content to allow the human, the professional, a judgment call, more or less, within the context of the workflow. Because in the end, it's the human that is making that call in our workflows.
Fantastic. Louis, anything to add there from a compliance perspective?
We're happy that Azure now has OpenAI and Anthropic, so that all the main model inference all happens within Azure.
Within Azure. Yeah. That's great. Now, as we wrap up, I want to sort of share a few key takeaways from our advice that you have for technical leaders who are embarking on this journey. So we'll start with you, Mark. Anything? What would you advise someone who is starting on this journey?
I would say a little bit of what I mentioned before is borrow whatever you can. We're I think as an industry, we've got lots of patterns out there. Borrow those things, put it in a platform, get all of your concentrations or securities and checks there. That way, everything's not a one-off. That's super important. And then lots of demos. I think the art of the possible, sharing, training, I think is super useful.
Fantastic. Adam?
Be outcome driven first. That's number one. And number two is I'll amplify Mark and say demos/prototypes, and then the rapid iteration. You can use Lewis's technology to do that on said prototypes aligned with outcomes.
Focus on the outcomes, the use case.
Amen
Great.
to that one.
Lewis?
Yes, a cautionary tale. Most of you will be tempted to measure your outcomes in lines of code created by agents. That's probably the wrong outcome to measure, because AI are good with spitting out a lot of lines of code.
Yeah.
But you're not really measuring what the business value is. So if you can measure things like how many features were shipped, how many PRs were shipped, how many incidents were removed, or how much your agent improved ROI, that's way better. It's harder, but it's way better for you.
That's fantastic advice. I mean, don't just measure what's easy, measure the right thing, right? So that's fantastic. So with that, I think we will take it home here. We have, as we wrap up, Microsoft offers a number of resources. If you want to get started, Azure Accelerate is sort of our one-stop shop with experts and funding and partner investments and so on. We also have a lot of resources on Microsoft Learn, so you can go get started to building AI agents. So there is sort of, for your entire team. In addition to that, we also have a few more resources. If you can look at our latest announcements and how we are enhancing our platform. We have this AI apps and agent dev days. So every month we are going to bring in sort of a series of content in partnership with NVIDIA. So that's a great resource for you to tap into live sessions. And then there are some related sessions. Some of them happened yesterday or day before, so you can watch them on demand. So I really want to thank our panelists for their fantastic advice here and the insights. And thank you all for being here. Hope you enjoy the rest of Ignite. Thank you.
Thank you.